It's one of the phone calls you get, you're thinking, there must be a mistake. Yeah.
Twist is also into mala carne.
If anyone sees him, we advise them not to approach him, and please do call 999 immediately.
Mira.
Mi jefe es muy malo.
I know this story is a bit different from what we usually cover on this channel, but after diving deep into the details, we couldn't ignore it. It starts with an elderly gay couple living a peaceful life in a quiet city. No criminal past, no drama, just two men minding their business. But what happens next isn't just disturbing. It sounds like something pulled straight from a horror film. Only this time, it's real. We're talking dismembered bodies in suitcases on a historic bridge, and at the center of it all, a young man caught on tape, singing and dancing in his victim's pool of blood. For days, investigators were scrambling, chasing leads, retracing steps, grasping at anything to find him. And in the end, he was caught in the most bizarre way imaginable. Let's just say, it might have had something to do with a missing shoe. As you watch, see if you can spot the moment this couple should have seen the red flags right in front of them, and what they should have done immediately they noticed what was going on. Welcome to Femme True Crime, where we tell the raw, untold stories behind the headlines. If you're drawn to truth, justice, and powerful storytelling, join the family. Subscribe now. This story takes us to the quiet streets of West London, a place where people knew each other by name and life moved without much drama. Friends say Albert Alfonso had a warmth about him that you couldn't miss. A swimming instructor by trade, he had this way of making even the most nervous beginner feel safe in the water. People who knew him say he carried that same calm into everyday life. He was patient, encouraging, always smiling. By his side was his partner, Paul Longworth. Friends described him as the steady one. He was practical, soft-spoken, but with a dry wit that could catch you off guard. He was the kind of man you could rely on, no matter what. The two met years ago through mutual friends at a community event. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, more like a slow, steady spark that never went out. They built their life together, piece by piece, sharing a small flat, routines, and a tight circle of friends who thought they'd be together forever. But as you're about to see, someone would soon enter their lives and turn their quiet world into something unrecognizable.
Emergency location.
Clifton Suspension Bridge.
Yeah. What's the emergency?
Right. We're going to need some police up here quite urgently, I think. We had a gentleman up here who was dragging a case behind him. A black gentleman. And it looks like it's really heavy and there's blood coming out of it.
Right.
It looks like there's blood coming out of the case. He then said there were two cases. So he went up the road to get the second case. The guy on the bike, who's just a member of the public, followed him. The guy has now run off. The guy with the case has run off. We're now with the case.
Okay.
And it just looks, I mean, it might not be blood, but it looks like blood to us. Without smashing the case open, we're not really going to know. It's blood. We're convinced it's blood.
Albert first met Yostian Mosquera in 2012, 13 years before the murders. Yostian was young then, sharp-tongued and magnetic, the kind of person who could walk into a room full of strangers and have them laughing within minutes. Friends say he had a way of locking eyes with you, like you were the only person that mattered. But behind the charm, there was a restless streak. Someone always chasing the next thrill, the next adventure. And sometimes, the next favor. Online, Yostian painted himself as bold and exciting, mixing nightlife snaps with flashes of luxury. But away from the camera, there were whispers, debts, fast deals, and a habit of finding people willing to help him out. When Albert first struck up a conversation with him, it was light, easy, nothing serious. But Yostian had a gift. He could turn small talk into familiarity, and familiarity into something deeper. And while Albert might not have known it then, this meeting would plant the seed for something that would one day draw Paul into the picture and change all three of their lives forever. It didn't just happen overnight. By the time Yostian came to stay with Albert and Paul, they already knew him well. Albert had first met him online, not through a normal dating app, but in adult spaces that catered to very specific sexual tastes. People who knew Albert say he liked things extreme. He wasn't shy about paying for exactly what he wanted. Paul knew about this side of Albert's life. He didn't join in, but he didn't stop it either. They had an unspoken arrangement. Albert could do what he liked, as long as it didn't cross certain lines. Yostian stood out from the others. He had a strong personality. He loved attention. Since 2017, he had been posting explicit videos under the name I Am Black Master. He was confident, bold, and knew exactly how to get what he wanted, especially from men like Albert. Soon, the connection moved beyond the screen. Albert and Paul met him in person. They traveled with him. They even visited his home country of Colombia. There are photos of the three of them smiling on beaches, riding in speedboats. This wasn't a quick fling. It was a friendship, mixed with business, and always with a sexual edge. So when Yostian came to stay with them in London, it didn't feel like they were inviting in a stranger. It felt like picking up where they'd left off. But the warning signs were there. Yostian would show little bursts of temper. He had a taste for expensive things he couldn't afford. And the fact that, between him and Albert, sex and money were always part of the deal. July 10th, 2024. It's late evening in Bristol. Albert and Paul have not been seen all day. They seem to have spent the day inside their flat. To neighbors, nothing seems out of the ordinary. No shouting, no sounds of trouble, just the quiet, normal hum of life in Scots Road. But inside those walls, something terrible has already happened. Hours later, just before midnight, a man is seen on the Clifton Suspension Bridge. He's dragging two large, heavy suitcases. Bystanders notice he's struggling. The cases look far too heavy for him. Something about the scene doesn't feel right. One of the bystanders first hesitates. Then they reach for their phone and dial 999. And this is what the operator hears.
Emergency location.
Clifton Suspension Bridge.
Yeah. What's the emergency?
Right. We're going to need some police up here quite urgently, I think. We had a gentleman up here who was dragging a case behind him. A black gentleman. At the time we were speaking to him, he didn't speak English, trying to translate and all that malarkey. We then had a message from you to look out for a girl who was on the bridge, so we had to leave him. We've now come back to the guy with the case, and a guy on a bike had stopped who actually spoke Spanish, so we were trying to have a conversation with him. He says in the case there's the case of the wheels are broken and what have you. He says there's car parts and what have you. It's got to be funny. The case is broken and it looks like it's really heavy and there's blood coming out of it.
Right,
it looks like there's blood coming out of the case. He then said there were two cases, so he went up the road to get the second case. The guy on the bike, who's just a member of the public, followed him. The guy has now run off. The guy with the case has run off. We're now with the case.
Okay.
And it just looks, I mean, it might not be blood, but it doesn't smell. He said it was car parts, oil. It doesn't smell of that at all. It looks like blood to us. Without smashing the case open, we're not really going to know, and that's obviously for you, but it's blood. We're convinced it's blood.
Within minutes, officers swarmed the area, but by the time they arrived, the man with the suitcases had fled the scene, vanishing into the night. They didn't yet know what was inside those suitcases, but what they found would horrify even the most seasoned investigators. The two suitcases were taken from the bridge under heavy police guard. No one on scene could yet confirm what was inside. When investigators finally unzipped them, the reality was worse than anyone could have prepared for. Inside, they found human remains. Not full bodies, but two separate torsos. No heads, no limbs. The condition of the remains meant they couldn't be identified right away. All they knew was that there were two victims. and that the person who carried them to this bridge was still out there. Officers who'd seen it all in their careers stood frozen. Some turned away. Others quietly stepped outside to compose themselves. This wasn't just a murder. This was something far more calculated and far more personal. Detectives knew they had to move fast. They released an image of Yostian to the public, taken from footage of him fleeing the Clifton Suspension Bridge that night. They spoke to everyone who'd been in the area. Most had nothing useful to say. Then, one witness mentioned seeing a red moving van drop off a man with 2 heavy suitcases that night. Detectives traced the van, tracked down the driver, and arrested him within hours. Under questioning, the driver told them he'd been hired by a man named Yostian Mosquera. He'd picked him up from a flat in Shepherd's Bush. The suitcases were already loaded when he arrived. When officers reached the address, what they saw was gruesome. Blood was smeared on the floors and walls of the apartment. Plastic sheeting was laid down like someone was preparing a kill room. They also found discarded cleaning supplies and a brand new fridge. Inside, they found the frozen remains of the victims. Then, detectives began to piece it all together. On July 8th, Paul Longworth was the first to die. Yostian waited till they were alone in the apartment. Then he struck him from behind with a hammer. He unleashed fatal blows to the back of the head. Paul never had a chance. Then, Yostian hid his body under the bed, cleaned the room, and waited for Albert. Later that evening, Albert came home, and what happened next was beyond brutal. Yostian filmed them having sex. Then he stabbed Albert over and over, in the torso, the face, the neck. When it was done, he filmed himself singing and dancing in the pool of blood. Yostian's digital trail told the rest of the story. On the day of the murders, his searches were chillingly precise. Where on the head is a fatal blow? How long for a body to decompose? He tried to drain Albert's bank accounts. Investigators found a PowerPoint presentation he'd made, neatly listing their account details. He even attempted to send £4,000 to his own account in Colombia. When that failed, he walked to a nearby bank branch and withdrew cash. He even bought a large fridge, the kind you could fit a person in. Police believe it wasn't for food. And in between these searches, he was watching serial killer documentaries, Jack the Ripper films, and forensic crime videos, studying the craft of killing like it was homework. After detectives uncovered the horrific crime scene inside Albert and Paul's flat, they were certain they had enough evidence to arrest Yostian Mosquera. But arresting him was easier said than done. He had switched off his phone, cutting off the easiest way to track him. There were no records of him leaving the country, no footage of him passing through airports or train stations. That told investigators something chilling. He was still somewhere in the UK, lying low. So the search became a waiting game. For days, police monitored everything they could: CCTV networks, transportation hubs, bank activity. Still, nothing. And then, almost out of nowhere, there was a break. Yostian's phone came back online. The signal pinged from Bristol, miles away from the crime scene. Detectives suspected he was making his way toward the train station, perhaps planning his next move or finally trying to disappear. They moved quickly. Coordinating with local officers, they closed in on the area, scanning the streets for the man they'd been hunting. And when they found him, it was an unusual sight. Yostian Mosquera was walking, calmly enough, but wearing only one shoe. Whether it had been lost during his time on the run, or whether it was a sign of a mind unraveling under the weight of what he'd done, no one could say for sure. The calm didn't last. Officers surrounded him, placed him in handcuffs, and formally arrested him for the murders of Albert Alfonso and Paul Longworth. In court, Yostian would try to shift the blame. He claimed that Albert had killed Paul and that he had killed Albert in self-defense. He accused Albert of using him for money by selling explicit videos of them online. But the forensic evidence, the blood patterns, the internet searches, the chillingly methodical cleanup, told a different story. The jury didn't believe him. Yostian Mosquera was found guilty of both murders. His sentencing is set for October 2025, where the court will decide the price he must pay for one of the most disturbing crimes in recent UK history. When trust turns into obsession, the danger isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's hidden in charm, in intimacy, in the small moments you think you understand someone. And sometimes, the signs are in plain sight. But by the time you see them, it's already too late. Next time, we'll look at another case where a seemingly ordinary relationship spiraled into unthinkable violence, and the one clue that could have stopped it before it began. Thanks for watching Femme True Crime. If you like this video, don't forget to share it, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a case. And remember, stay safe out there. You never know what's hiding behind a smile. Until next time.